Hello and welcome to Simplicity Engine 102. In this tutorial, I want to show you how easy it is to change an existing flow in Simplicity Engine and how easy it is to add persistence to our flows so that we can store the information in a database. I want also to show you how the simplating works. Simplating is the templating mechanism in Simplicity Engine to ease the access to the information. We'll come back to that later. And this is the continuation of the Simplicity Engine 101 tutorial, which I strongly recommend you to see it if you didn't yet. And we're going to start over at the same point that we left it in that 101 tutorial. And to start, I'm going to do a quick recap of what our flow does so far, and then we start changing it to adapt to our needs. We have an HTTP block that allows our users to send us the information, the queries at this path grid, and then a choice block, which is filtering out all the undesired users that we don't want to give service to. And then once we decide that we do want to give service to that specific user that we're getting the query from, we are going to an HTTP service that is out on the internet and getting the weather for the specific location in which that user is. And then after that, we're just returning that information to the user. We're just telling the user what the weather is like in the place they are at that moment. Now imagine that I figured that the people is sending me their location, so it would be awesome if I could store that information and then keep track of it, and in case later I want to do something with it. So imagine that some person spends a lot of time in London, so I might want to give them information about London, offers, marketing, basically anything I want to do with it. So I want that information to be stored in my database. How do I do that? So basically, I need to get an out block, an SQL out block. Now, SQL is basically a generic SQL block that will allow me to store or retrieve information from an SQL database. We're going to name it insert info. Remember that the name is a unique identifier of a block within a flow. And then other things that we can configure for this particular block are basically the JVC driver, our database. This is the information from our database. This is the URL of the database. See, it's a Postgres database, username and password. The table name in which we're going to store the information is hello, and this is how table hello looks like. So I'm going to copy the URL and paste it here, but first I want to select the right driver, Postgres. The URL, as I mentioned, is this one. It's running in our local host in the same server as the Simplicity Engine. Username was demo. Password was sbdemo. Template in is basically what are the SQL commands that we want to execute when we reach this point. Now, if you remember, a quick glance at the database, at the table is basically formed by the name, the last name, latitude, longitude, and timestamp. These four items are being sent by the subscriber. This timestamp, we need to figure out how to get it. But in any case, we want to do an insert into hello. That's our table values. And then it's a literal, so it goes between single quotes. Query name. Remember that we use query because it's what the user is sending in their HTTP query. Query last name. Then latitude and longitude are integers, so we don't use single quotes. So query lat, query long, and then the timestamp. Now, the timestamp is not being sent in the HTTP query by the users, but we know what time it is in the Simplicity Engine server. So Simplicity Engine also provides a set of variables, of system variables that basically you can use in your flows to your convenience. So the timestamp, we're gonna get it from this actual Simplicity Engine timestamp. Now, how do we do that? So for variables, we use the $sign. For system parameters and variables, we use the hash sign. So hash date is gonna give us the time and the date and time right now. Every time that we reach this block, basically, every time that we make this call, we're gonna get the timestamp with this formula. That's it for now. And then the only thing that's missing is basically to tell HTTP out that it needs to go to insert info1, and then to tell insert info1 that now it needs to go to friends1. Click on save, and it's updated successfully. Now we go to Postman, and Jane, remember our friend Jane, is coming and visiting us and sending us a request. So let's see. She's right now in Seattle. So hello Jane Doe, the weather in Seattle is broken clouds. It's kind of typical for Seattle, I would say. She comes back again, and she's still in Seattle. Now she moves to San Francisco, and the weather in San Francisco is mist, which is also kind of typical. We also have other people accessing our service. For instance, this person, Bruce Wayne, our millionaire friend, he's coming and visiting us from Abbeywood. I think that's in London, UK. And obviously, there are clouds in London, UK. He comes back, and same thing again. See, it's still working, and there is no difference to the end user, but we are actually storing the information in our database every time they're calling. And at some point, we're going to want to retrieve that information, right? So in order to do that, what we're going to do is to create another endpoint that only us will know. And for that, I just drag and drop an HTTP in block, and I'm gonna call it retrieve HTTP info. Path is going to be watch. That's different from the previous one. Then I remember that this block is just getting the request, but not doing much about them. So we're going to add some processing. Now, what do we want to do with this watch? We want to go to the database, retrieve all the information that we stored, and then present it in a reasonable way for us to understand what happened, basically. Now we open the out section, and again, we're going to use an SQL out. And we configure the SQL out. Now, let's call it retrieve SQL info. Driver again is the Postgres. Let me get that information from here. The URL is this one. Username, we know it. The template in this time is just going to be get me everything you've got in the hello table. It's as easy as that. Finally, now we have all the information within the system. We just need to present it to the requester in a friendly way. In order to do that, as you know already, we have the stub block. Now for the stub block, I'm going to call it if stub. And then, well, here we're going to return HTML. And here we just need to provide what we want to return basically to the watcher. So since it's tabular data, we just want to return a table. Now I'm going to create an HTML table here, HTML, that will take 50% of the screen when it's presented. And then now, since we're gonna have a lot of rows, and we want Simplicity Engine to loop through all of them and then present the information recursively. In order to do that, we have the simplating mechanism. Simplate is a templating engine that Simplicity Engine uses internally and that you can invoke in order to access the information in a more friendly manner, in a more, let's say, logical manner for you. And let me show you how that works. So as I mentioned, we have several rows. We just need to loop on the previous response, the items, on the hello table that we got from before, and then on every row of the hello table, all the items that we got in the response, basically. In order to close the loop, we just do end loop, and then we close our table. Now, here, for every item that we find, we're gonna create a row like this. So PR, that's a row, HTML, and then I close that. Sorry, go. And now, on every row, we're gonna have a column. So for columns, we have the first column, which is going to be name, last name, and then I close that column. And again, the, and then I'm gonna get the latitude, comma, longitude, close the TD, and then the last one is going to be the timestamp. Now you might be wondering, why are we not using query.name, query.lastname right now? Remember that we only use that because the name and the last name came in the query before, but now the query is not bringing any information. It's just a get to the Simplicity Engine to see all we've got. So where did we get these names from? Now we get these names from the hello table. So we select everything from hello, and it comes in this form: name, last name, lat long, and timestamp. And if you see, these are the names that we're referring here. All right. So the only thing that's missing again is to tell the HTTP in that it needs to go to retrieve SQL info, and then that is SQL info needs to go to retrieve stub. That's it. Save the flow. Update it successfully. And then the only thing that's missing is to go and test it. Now we go to watch, and we get the table with all the accesses that we've got. See, this is when Jane Doe came from Seattle twice. This is when Jane Doe came from San Francisco. We remember that. And this is where our friend Bruce Wayne came to us with a request from London, the UK. If we get Jane to call us again from San Francisco, still missed. I'm not surprised with that. And then I come here and see this is the latest access that we got from Jane Doe. When she accessed us from San Francisco again, at this point, we stored the information in our database and we retrieved it as part of the retrieve flow later. So this is all I wanted to share with you, and this is how you can persist and retrieve information from databases in Simplicity Engine. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching till the end. Thank you. Bye.